Welcome to another video. Today is going to be a bit of a preparation video for the next Santa Pod Day, which is now 3 weeks away. If you've been watching the series, you will see that with Santa Pod, it came back running, but we still had a bit of an issue with the back engine, that we went up to the starting line and it wouldn't fire after doing one run. So with it not firing, obviously I tried to do it on the front. You know, it didn't really go to plan with the boost issue down to the spark plugs, and obviously I still think the back engine doesn't fire because of spark plugs. So it's in the garage, we've turned it round because obviously the back engine is the one which wouldn't fire, so we've got to do any work on it. It's there. We're going to change the spark plugs, we're going to give everything a good once over, checking, you know, stuff like all nuts and bolts, fuel lines, water hoses, basically going on the full car. So when we get to Santa Pod, everything's ready, the car's had a good once over, and it's all prepped. So let's see where we get on, and let's get the car prepped for Santa Pod. So, doing some basic checks on the car with the back engine. I kind of had a sneaky feeling, I half knew what the problem could have been, because I've had a problem with the back engine like this before. Probably tried to tell myself it wasn't going to be that. So let me show you what I'm seeing, and I'll explain a little bit further. So what I'm seeing is that we plug into the Olmex ECU, we crank the engine, and it doesn't see a synchronization. What that means is, on a crank trigger wheel, it'll have a certain amount of teeth and it'll have one missing. So I think these are 36 teeth, one tooth missing. So what the ECU wants to see is, it'll count the 36, it'll know where the one is and go boom, I know where we are, and then it'll fire the engine. If it doesn't see that missing tooth, it technically won't fire. So when I've plugged into the car, gone to crank the back engine where we've had the fault, doesn't do the synchronization. So let me now put in the clip of what happens on the ECUs, what we're seeing on the laptop, so you guys can understand a little bit more what I'm seeing. So this is to show you what I'm seeing. So this is the mapping software for the Olmex 600. This is like the basic screen, just to give you a bit of information on there, you know, to know where you're going. So if you look here, TPS, so if you know, it shows what the TPS sensor's doing, as well as obviously throttle, you know, it shows percentage pressed and everything else. But what we're interested in is the start synchronization. And what this does is, when you spin the engine over, there's always a tooth missing. So that, as it spins over, it needs to see that missing tooth, you know, in a certain period of time. If it doesn't see that, you'll basically get no synchronized start and the engine won't start. So this is the front engine we're looking at. So let me just turn it over and you'll see what happens. So that's basically showing that, you know, it's seeing the missing tooth, everything's good. So now let me plug into the back engine and I'll show you what I'm seeing there. So we're now looking at the live data from the rear engine. So let's crank it and let's look at the synchronization. And that there is obviously not good. It's kind of what I expected to see, but didn't want to see. So let's get under it. Let's pull the crank sensor out and let's see whether A is the crank sensor, or B, I've done what I predicted and sheared the trigger wheel off again. So what I'm going to do now is, it's either going to be one of two things. We've either got a broken crank sensor or there's a trigger wheel fault. Now, being honest, I think it's going to be the trigger wheel fault. I've had this before. I couldn't tell you why it does it, but let's have a look at what the fault is. Let's pull the. What we're going to do is we're going to get under. We're going to pull the crank sensor out, and I'm going to try and move the trigger wheel with my finger. If it moves, I've sheared the trigger wheel off. If it doesn't, it's a crank sensor fault. So let's now get under and let's have a look and let's see which one of the faults it is. Whether it's a crank sensor, fingers crossed it is a crank sensor because that's an easy fix, I've got spares, or if it's a trigger wheel. If it's a trigger wheel, it's a bit more of a ball ache, but let's see where we get on. So what I've done is, I've removed the crank sensor, this is where this little post is, to put my finger in and see whether I can move the trigger wheel. Obviously, me thinking it's sheared off. And, yeah, you can spin it with your finger. So, I have no idea what to do now because we've done this. Now, this is the second time this has done the trigger wheel. It was a brand new trigger wheel from Vauxhall, brand new bolts, all thread locked. No idea. Let's basically take the engine out and we'll have to inspect it. Technically no damage to the engine at all. Normally it just shears it off, doesn't run, but then everything goes back to normal. So let's get this engine out, unfortunately, and let's have a look. So there you have it. It's the trigger wheel. As I said previously at the beginning of the video, I've had this fault before. What it does is, for some strange reason, there's 3 bolts which hold the trigger wheel on. For some reason, at the top of a run, did it last time, I think at Race Wars on the runway, it shears the trigger wheel off. So, I've made a couple of calls between now and then, between obviously filming me checking what it was, to get some advice and try and understand this a little bit better. And we're all coming back to harmonics. We think there's something on this back engine which doesn't like, and it's the harmonics of the bottom end which is causing them 3 bolts to just shear off. So basically, what these cars run, this car runs, is it runs a solid bottom pulley. From factory, they have what's called a dampener pulley, which is like a rubber insert, which takes a slight bit of harmonics out of the crank to try and solve the problem. So that's basically what I'm going to have to change to. So, yeah, it's an engine out job, to put it bluntly. So now, as usual, car fighting, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I've got to take the back engine out. So back engine's got to come out. It's got to be fully stripped down to the bare bones. Take the crank out, take the timing trigger wheel off, put a new one on, and put the crank back in. I can't do it in situ because the way the back end frame is, you can't not take the sump off, so it's a full engine out. So, there we go. I don't know what to say. He's fighting. There's a saying that everyone says, these cars are like strippers. You pay all that money, you get one good experience, and then it's done. And you have to throw more money at it. So, this is what's happening. So, I'm going to end the video here. I'm 3 weeks from Santa Pod. I'm going to get this engine out and I'll film us basically, inside and what we do to try and solve it. So, thanks for watching. It's been a disappointing video for me. Probably some of you guys are going to be laughing and wondering why I carry on with this project. And this is why I said previously, these projects, the long-term ones, fight you all the way and you lose your heart with them. But you can't do that. You've just got to keep on ploughing and ploughing and ploughing and getting on with them. So, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.